To transition this to the Karl Anthony Towns trade back from 1 year ago, the biggest question with the Minnesota Timberwolves a year ago was, once we get to next year and Nas and those guys are free agent and you have supermax money for two players, what optionality do you have? But now there are, like we mentioned earlier, Randle making 33, Nas 25, Rudy making 36, Jaden 27. Those are all really tradable contracts. So if we go into next year and we realize, okay, this team isn't what we want it to be, there's much more flexibility than there was 1 year ago. And that was the pitch for the Tim Connolly thing. Like today, would we be saying goodbye to Nas, Reed, and Nikhil, and we don't have a first round pick, and we don't have Dante in the Karl Anthony Towns trade? So when the Randall extension happened, it made me just kind of reminisce and be like, yeah, that's exactly what Tim Connolly was saying with the KAT trade. Had nothing to do with KAT as a player. It's just the CBA now, there was no optionality. And now if this doesn't work, Minnesota can still maneuver around, and likely we don't, tarnish on an Anthony Edwards window 2 years down the road, since he has more leverages to navigate.
Yeah, and I would bet if you got enough drinks in Tim Connolly that he would tell you that in an ideal world, he wouldn't have had to trade Karl Anthony Towns. But you do talk to whether it be executives for the Wolves or anyone. Obviously, again, for anyone going to Summer League, it's like the greatest time to network and kind of get your foot in the door. But everyone is united, and it's very hard right now in 2025 to be united on any topic. But everyone is united in the fact that the new CBA is brutal and is killing the ability to like build a good team. And it even punishes you. Like, we'll see what OKC does down the road. They have the best GM in the NBA, but even them, like, teams are now being kind of punished for drafting well, and you can't even retain all your guys because of this second apron and those penalties. So again, the Karl Anthony Towns thing, and Jace Frederick kind of summed it up like this, and it's not a perfect comp, but it does kind of give you perspective on what Karl brought them back. But they have Julius now long-term on still a very movable deal. You got Dante, who, again, bad year, but still a really good player on anyone who is a good 3 and a little D guy that makes $10 million a year. That's like one of the best contracts in the league. So Dante having that asset, then you go get, the 17th pick from Detroit, who ends up being, as I call him, kind of baby baguette in Johan Berenger, and then also the ability to sign Nas Reed. So I still think there's a lot of people that are sad about Karl, and I get it. And he had a huge run and played a huge role, right, for the Knicks, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. But it does go back to trying to navigate. I mean, you and I have spent our whole lives being NBA fans, and only in the last 18 to 24 months has the league, in my opinion, really changed in terms of free agency. Now is all about trading contracts, and extending guys is actually better than not extending guys, because you need those assets and those dollars to match up. So it's a wild, wild west out there, not just in the Western Conference, but in the league. And I think Tim Connolly and his group understands it about as best as you can, while also still very much learning. So they've got the contracts in place. It is about a year removed from the KAT trade. Both those teams, I think, won the deal. But that Pistons pick becoming Berenger is not something to scoff at, right? Because I think you and I are both pretty high on him. And without making that KAT trade, you don't have a first round pick this year. So I do think it was ultimately a really good move by Tim and that front office.
And if you want to go back like 3 years ago when they make the Rudy Gobert trade and we're not really aware of this new CBA, there's a lot of questions like, if they're aware of what's coming, do they actually ever acquire Rudy Gobert? And is Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards still on the team? Because I think a lot of executives would agree to this too. The fact that they just like threw the slam dunk on you and everybody had to figure it out right away, that was a big problem with the CBA. Because like, if they found out, okay, this is going to kick in let's just say 2023, and you have 2 years to figure it out in 2021 or 2024 based on the timing of these CBA meetings, I don't think Minnesota does something to deal KAT. I don't think they acquire Rudy in the first place. And we all love Rudy, but this wasn't about like betraying Karl Anthony Towns. And I think sometimes I felt like on social media, that's how, some people try to frame it. But like you said, it's worked out with both teams. Both teams made the conference finals. They've both got what they want. KAT was fantastic next to Jalen Brunson. Minnesota, they have a lot of good players. They're deeper now, but they also don't have to lock in on two players. It's one player, and then 4 contracts behind him. And now you can kind of see, okay, which pieces fit and which ones don't, and we can trade the pieces that don't.
And the Nas thing specifically, because again, pretty much everyone on this roster, right, left a bad taste in the fan base's mouth because of how that OKC series went. And Nas had his struggles, but you have to remember, you're not paying these guys on these new deals or these extensions for what they did in the past. You're paying for what you hope they do moving forward. We were talking about this with Dane Moore. When Ant signed his rookie extension, he wasn't the league's best 3-point shooter, right? Like that's just something that he then developed into being. So for Nas, now that he's gotten a serious bag and 5 years, 125, it's like, okay, we're paying you that to expect that you're going to get better defensively. You're going to be a better rebounder. Because to me, I mean, this is kind of out there. And I know there's a lot of guys currently on the roster that we're kind of throwing away in this hypothetical. But I think of this team in Ant's prime of having more athleticism, more spacing. So like a Berenger at the 5 and Nas at the 4 and Jay, like length, shooting. Maybe Rob has finally fully matured into like a really dynamic get out and transition point guard. So I think you need to see that at some point. But again, I think they're more in a neutral holding pattern, which is so boring. Well, it's the SpongeBob meme, right? Like we're Squidward sitting in the house watching everyone else do cool stuff and not a lot is happening. But I don't think we're going to be locked in this house forever. And again, I expect Tim Connelly just isn't the type of guy, man, that is going to be like, okay, we're done. I'll see you in October. He's constantly cooking up things behind the scenes. We'll see if they equate to anything positive. But for now, I think you summed it up the best. The Karl-Anthony Towns trade broke the couch into multiple chunks of a couch. And I think that's unfortunately or fortunately the way that the new NBA kind of luxury tax system and second apron system works, is that you got to have chunks of contracts rather than these big 50, 60, $70 million deals.
And it's so great to have a GM that you can, or a Pobo who you can trust navigate it, because Matt Lloyd's also pretty awesome. Because Tim Connelly, we've seen him adjust to a new CBA. We've seen him make bold deals, right? I mean, he gave up all of his first-round draft picks in the Rudy Gobert trade, and from 2022 to 2026, they're going to still have 5 first-round picks. I mean, that's 1 per year. I'm not a mathematician, but I'm pretty sure each team is given 1 first-round pick. So he's been navigating this entirely well, and it's just so great to have somebody you can trust to make these transitions, because I'm sure you can attest to this, Kyle, because we followed this team during the David Kahn era. By the way, I met David Kahn in Paris one time, one of the most random meetings of all time. But we used to worry about whiffing on second overall picks. And today, I'm more worried about, was trading back in the second round the right move?
Yeah,
like,
right.
I don't like the Joe Ingles signing. Like the margins are just so much wider now, because the criticisms are so much more specific and constructive, and that's a really good problem to have.
Yeah, and I agree. And I referenced De'Aaron Fox earlier, but if you do go out and make a big swing right now, again, after the Gobert trade was a big swing, and I think it's pretty clear that worked out. But, you have an aging center who is, outside of that Lakers game 5, didn't have a great postseason. So I get the concern there, having some older guys taking up a lot of cap space on the roster. But the problem is if you make a big splash just to make a big splash, like we've seen in Phoenix multiple times, you then find yourself sped up in the concern of like, is Ant going to leave, right? Or are we screwing ourselves where one day we're going to break news because we had to do a insane stretch provision for Damian Lillard who tore his Achilles? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be the team that has dead cap space. So I sound like a broken record, man, but I expect them to make another big trade, but I just think sometimes you do have to kind of feel out the market. I mean, as we're recording this, Jakob Poeltl just signed a crazy 4-year new deal with the Raptors that makes him really highly paid. And I like him. He's a good player, but it kind of made me think, wow, that Julius number, that Nas number, those are pretty good numbers in the grand schemes of things. And again, maybe Tim Connelly is just keeping the car right now in neutral before he pushes it forward, but still some holes, I think, on this roster that need to be addressed.